Haunted elevator. It was a typical Monday morning, and the office workers of the high-rise building in downtown Manhattan were making their way to their desks. The elevators were packed with people, all eager to get to their floors and start their day. But one elevator, in particular, had a reputation for being haunted. No one wanted to ride in it, but sometimes it was the only option. The elevator was old and creaky, and it always seemed to stop on the 13th floor, even though the building only had 12 floors. The people who rode in it said that they felt a chill in the air and could hear strange noises coming from within the walls. One day, a young woman named Rachel was running late for a meeting on the 10th floor. She didn't want to risk being late, so she reluctantly stepped into the haunted elevator. The doors closed behind her with a creak and a thud, and she pressed the button for the 10th floor. The elevator started moving, but instead of going up, it started going down. Rachel looked at the buttons and saw that the elevator was going to the basement level. She tried to press the button for the 10th floor again, but it wouldn't work. As the elevator descended, Rachel could feel her heart pounding in her chest. The air grew colder, and she could hear the sound of whispers coming from within the walls. Suddenly, the elevator stopped, and the doors opened to reveal a dark, empty basement. Rachel tried to press the button to close the doors, but they wouldn't budge. She was trapped in the haunted elevator, and she knew that something was terribly wrong. As she tried to push the doors closed, she felt a cold breeze rush past her. She looked down and saw that there was a puddle of water at her feet. It was then that she realized that she was standing in the middle of a flooded basement. The whispers grew louder, and Rachel felt something brush against her leg. She looked down and saw a hand reaching out from the water. She screamed and tried to jump back, but the doors of the elevator closed on her, trapping her inside. The elevator started moving again, and Rachel could feel it ascending. She pressed the button for the 10th floor, but the elevator didn't stop. It kept going up past the 12th floor and into the unknown. Rachel was terrified, and she didn't know what to do. She tried to call for help, but her phone had no signal. She was completely alone, trapped in the haunted elevator. Finally, the elevator stopped. The doors opened to reveal a dark, deserted floor. Rachel stepped out of the elevator, but she didn't know where she was. The floor was empty, and there were no signs of life. As she walked down the dark hallway, she heard a noise behind her. She turned around to see a figure standing in the shadows. It was a man dressed in an old-fashioned suit. His face was pale and gaunt, and his eyes were dark and hollow. Rachel tried to run, but she couldn't. Her legs felt like lead, and she was frozen in fear. The figure started walking towards her, and Rachel knew that she was in grave danger. Suddenly, the lights flickered on, and the figure vanished into thin air. Rachel was alone, but she knew that she had experienced something beyond explanation. She eventually made it to her meeting, but she was never the same again. As Rachel sat in her meeting, her mind couldn't focus on anything that was being discussed. All she could think about was the terrifying experience she had just gone through. When the meeting was over, Rachel quickly gathered her things and made her way out of the building. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was following her. Every time she turned around, she expected to see the ghostly figure from the elevator, but there was no one there. She breathed a sigh of relief as she stepped out onto the busy New York City streets, hoping that the bustle of the city would drown out the echoes of her haunting experience. But the terror she had felt that morning had left a deep mark on her, and she couldn't seem to shake it. She found herself constantly looking over her shoulder, always expecting to see the ghostly figure lurking in the shadows. Days turned into weeks, and Rachel couldn't escape the feeling that she was being followed. She started to avoid the elevator altogether, taking the stairs, even when it meant climbing 20 flights of stairs to get to her office. But no matter what she did, she couldn't escape the feeling that something was after her. One day, Rachel decided that she had enough. She needed to know what had happened in the elevator, and she needed to know why it had haunted her ever since. She returned to the building, determined to find answers. She made her way to the basement level, where the elevator had taken her that fateful day. The basement was dark and musty, and the air was thick with the smell of dampness and decay. She searched the area, looking for any sign of what had happened there. As she explored the dark corners of the basement, she stumbled upon an old, dusty book. It was an old logbook from the 1920s, which detailed all of the maintenance and repairs done on the elevator over the years. As she read through the pages, Rachel's heart sank. She found the entry that corresponded to the day she had taken the elevator. The logbook read that on that day, the elevator had malfunctioned and stopped on the basement level. The repair team had come to fix it, but when they opened the doors, they found that the elevator was flooded with water. The team drained the water and fixed the elevator, but they couldn't explain where the water had come from. Rachel's heart raced as she read the words, knowing that she had experienced the same thing. But then, something caught her eye. A handwritten note in the margin, written by one of the repairmen. The note read, "Be careful on this elevator. The last time we were here, we saw something we couldn't explain. Something that wasn't human." Rachel felt her blood run cold as she read the words. She realized that she wasn't alone in the elevator that day. The ghostly figure that had been haunting her was real, and it had been there all along. From that day on, Rachel never took the haunted elevator again. But she could never shake the feeling that something was still following her, watching her every move. She had come face to face with a ghost, and she knew that the experience would stay with her forever. Rachel's experience with the haunted elevator didn't just affect her. She couldn't keep the story to herself, and she began to share it with anyone who would listen. Before long, rumors began to spread about the haunted elevator in the building, and people started avoiding it altogether. Rachel's story soon became the talk of the town, and she found herself giving interviews and appearing on television shows to share her terrifying experience. The building management tried to downplay the rumors and deny the existence of any ghosts, but the stories persisted. Eventually, the building owners decided to shut down the elevator and have it thoroughly inspected and repaired. The repair team found nothing wrong with the elevator, but they did find something strange. Deep inside the elevator shaft, they found an old, rusted metal box. Inside the box, they found a collection of old photographs and documents. The photographs showed the building when it was first constructed, and the documents revealed that the basement level had once been a secret laboratory. The laboratory had been used for experiments on human subjects, and the records showed that many of the experiments had gone terribly wrong. The building's owners had kept the laboratory a secret for years, and they had gone to great lengths to cover up the experiments. The repair team knew that they had found something significant, and they called the police to investigate. The investigation uncovered a dark and twisted history of the building, one that had been kept hidden for decades. The laboratory had been the site of illegal experiments, and many of the subjects had died gruesome deaths. The ghostly figure that Rachel had encountered in the elevator was believed to be the spirit of one of the laboratory's victims. It was believed that the building's owners had tried to cover up the experiments by disposing of the bodies in the elevator shaft, and that the spirits of the victims had been trapped there ever since. The building was soon closed down, and it became known as one of the most haunted buildings in New York City. The story of the haunted elevator became part of the building's dark history, and people still tell the tale to this day. Rachel never forgot about her experience, and she never took elevators for granted again. She knew that the world was full of dark secrets and hidden horrors, and she had come face to face with one of them. She had lived to tell the tale, but the experience had left her changed forever. As for the haunted elevator, it remained closed and abandoned, a reminder of the building's dark and twisted history. The spirits of the victims may still haunt the building, but no one knows for sure. The only thing that is certain is that the story of the haunted elevator will continue to chill people's bones for years to come.